The voice on the other end of the line belonged to the chief of staff at Sick Kids Hospital. Dr. Carruthers, we are losing this child. You are the only surgeon in the country certified for this procedure. Where are you? But I couldn't answer, because my stepfather had just ripped the phone out of my hand, and he was laughing. My name is Linnea Carruthers. I am 32 years old. To the rest of Canada's medical community, I am the youngest chief of pediatric neurosurgery ever appointed at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, one of the top 5 children's hospitals on the planet. I have operated on brains smaller than my fist. I have separated conjoined twins on live television. I have a Governor General's Innovation Award sitting in a glass case in my office downtown. But to my stepfather Gavin, I am a receptionist. That's the story he tells. That's the story he tells. That's the story my mother lets him tell. And on that Thanksgiving weekend in October, in a drafty bungalow in Timmins, Ontario, that lie almost cost a 4-year-old girl her life. I need to take you back to the beginning so you understand how a woman who commands an operating theater of 20 people couldn't command the dinner table in her mother's kitchen. Gavin moved in when I was 11. He was a foreman at the nickel mine outside town, a thick-necked man with hands like catcher's mitts and an opinion on everything. He wasn't cruel at first. He was worse. He was charming. He bought my mother tiny flowers on Tuesdays, not because it was a special day, but because he said ordinary days deserved beauty. She melted. After my father left us for a woman in Barrie and never sent a single child support check. A man who brought flowers on a Tuesday must have felt like a miracle. The charm curdled slowly, the way milk turns in the back of the fridge. By the time I was 14, Gavin had stopped buying flowers and started buying cases of Molson Canadian. By the time I was 16, he had stopped complimenting my mother and started correcting her. By the time I was 18 and packing for university, he wasn't even pretending anymore. University, Gavin had said, standing in the doorway of my bedroom, blocking the light. He said the word like it was a disease. What's the point? You drop out by Christmas. Girls from Timmins don't become doctors. They become dental hygienists if they're lucky. He turned to my mother, who was folding my clothes into a suitcase behind me. Tell her, Diane, tell her she's wasting the money. My mother paused. She held one of my sweaters against her chest. Gavin has a point, sweetie. Maybe you could start at the college first. Get your feet wet. It's closer. You could still come home on weekends and help with the house. Help with the house. That meant cook his meals, clean his messes, absorb his moods, and be the buffer between my mother and the man she chose over me every single day. I left anyway. I got into the University of Toronto on a full scholarship. I graduated top of my class. I was accepted into the neurosurgery residency at U of T, one of the most competitive programs in the country. 14 applicants out of 800. I was one of them. I called home to tell my mother. She cried. I thought it was pride. Then I heard Gavin in the background. Residency, that's just a fancy word for unpaid intern. She'll be fetching coffee for real doctors. Don't encourage her. That's wonderful, honey, my mother said, her voice flattening into the careful, tiptoeing register she used when Gavin was in the room. Just don't get your hopes too high, okay? We don't want you to be disappointed. I stopped calling after that. Not all at once. The calls just got shorter, farther apart, then stopped like a heartbeat on a monitor flatlining into silence. I threw everything into my work. I published papers. I invented a microsurgical technique for removing tumors from infant brain stems that other surgeons said was impossible. The New England Journal of Medicine ran it as a cover story. The CBC did a profile on me. I was 30 and I was running the department. And not once, not a single time in all those years did my mother call to say she was proud. She did call for money though. 2 years ago, Gavin lost his job at the mine. They said it was downsizing. The union said it was because he showed up drunk to a safety briefing. Either way, the mortgage on the Timmins bungalow went into arrears. My mother called me sobbing at 2 in the morning, whispering so Gavin wouldn't hear. Please, Linnea, we're going to lose the house. He can't know I called you. He'd be so ashamed. I set up a monthly transfer. $3,000. Enough to cover the mortgage, the property tax, and the hydro bill. Gavin thought the bank had restructured the loan. My mother let him believe it. And so the man who called me a dropout was living in a house that my hands, the same hands that rebuild children's brains, were paying for. If you believe that the people who mock your dreams the loudest are often the ones living off your success, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button right now. This past October, I drove up to Timmins for Thanksgiving. I didn't go for Gavin. I didn't go for my mother. I went for my grandfather, Harvey. Harvey was 87. He had been a smoke jumper with the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources for 30 years, parachuting into forest fires across northern Ontario when he was young, then training new crews until he retired. Parkinson's had slowed his body to a tremor, but his mind was still sharp enough to cut glass. He lived in the back bedroom of my mother's house because Gavin said the long-term care homes in Timmins were government warehouses for people who gave up. The truth was that Gavin kept Harvey around because Harvey's veteran's pension covered the grocery bill. My grandfather was a revenue stream disguised as a family obligation. I pulled into the driveway around 4 in the afternoon. The leaves on the birch trees along Highway 101 were bright orange, that electric northern Ontario autumn that makes everything look like it's on fire. Gavin's truck, a black Ram 1500 with chrome running boards he couldn't afford, was parked at an angle across the driveway, taking up as much space as he always did. I sat in my car for a moment. I was wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. I had deliberately left my hospital ID, my credentials, and my lab coat in my condo in Toronto. To this family, I was a receptionist at a medical clinic. That was the story my mother had crafted to keep Gavin's ego from collapsing. She answers phones, Gavin. She books appointments. It's nothing special. My mother told me once that if Gavin knew how successful I was, he would feel bad about himself, so she amputated my achievements to protect his comfort. And I let her because I thought that was what love looked like. I was wrong. The kitchen smelled like roasting turkey and something burned. The Maple Leafs pregame was blasting from the living room TV. Gavin was already 2 Molsons deep, sprawled in the lazy boy recliner he had claimed like a throne. Well, well, Gavin said without getting up. The receptionist finally made it. Traffic bad on the 11, or did you have to stay late to answer one more phone? He laughed at his own joke, the can of beer balanced on his stomach rising and falling with his laughter. Hi, Gavin, I said. I kept my voice neutral, flat. The same tone I use when I'm telling a parent that their child's surgery will take 14 hours and I need them to remain calm. My mother came out of the kitchen wiping her hands on a dish towel. She hugged me, but it was the kind of hug that has an expiration date. Quick, efficient, over before Gavin could comment on it. You look tired, she said, studying my face. Are they working you too hard at the clinic? You should tell your supervisor. You deserve a break. My supervisor. I am the supervisor. I am the supervisor. I run a department of 43 surgeons, fellows, and residents. I have an annual budget of $96 million. But here in this kitchen, I answer phones. I'm fine, Mum, I said. My Aunt Barb was there too, setting the table. She gave me a sympathetic look over the turkey platter. Barb knew something was off about my receptionist story, but was too polite to push. I went to the back bedroom. Harvey was sitting in his wheelchair by the window, watching the birch trees shed their leaves. His hands were shaking, but he smiled when he saw me. And that smile steadied something inside me that I didn't know was shaking. There she is, he said, his voice a low rumble like gravel under truck tires. My girl. I knelt beside him and took his hand. His skin was thin as birch bark. Happy Thanksgiving, Grandpa. You operating this week? He whispered, glancing at the closed door. My stomach dropped. Grandpa, how do you? I watch the news, Linnea. I'm old, not blind. His eyes, pale blue like lake ice, crinkled. I saw you on the CBC last spring, separating those twins. You were wearing a blue surgical cap and you looked exactly like your grandmother when she was concentrating. Tears burned behind my eyes. You can't tell anyone. Mum would. I know why you hide, he said, squeezing my hand with a strength that surprised me. The same reason I never told your grandmother about the fires that scared me. Some people can't handle knowing what you carry. But I want you to know that I know. And I am so goddamn proud of you. It was the only time in my adult life that anyone in my armlet, life that anyone in my family had said those words to me. I pressed my forehead to his knuckles and let two tears fall. Just two, before I wiped my face and stood up. A surgeon doesn't cry, not before the procedure, and Thanksgiving dinner with Gavin was always a procedure. The table was set with my grandmother's china, the good plates with the blue flowers that my mother only brought out twice a year. The turkey was golden and glistening. There were mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce from a can, Brussels sprouts that nobody would touch, and a bread stuffing that smelled like sage and butter. It was beautiful. It was a minefield. Gavin carved the turkey standing up, the electric knife buzzing in his hand like a surgical saw. He wielded it the way he wielded everything, as if it proved something about him. You know what I heard at the Legion last week? Gavin announced, not waiting for anyone to ask. They're shutting down the ER in Kapus casing. Budget cuts. Trudeau's people gutting Northern healthcare. He pointed the knife at me. That's what your clinic friends don't understand, eh? They sit in their big city offices pushing paper while towns like ours lose their hospitals. I said nothing. I cut a piece of turkey. The irony was so thick it could have been the gravy. I had personally lobbied the Ontario Ministry of Health to keep 3 northern emergency rooms open last year. I sat in committee meetings in Queen's Park. I had the health minister's personal number in my phone, but here I pushed paper. Nothing to say. Gavin smirked. Figures. You don't even know what an ER does, do you? You just book the appointments. He leaned back, satisfied with himself. I tell you, if I ran the health system, I'd have it fixed in a month. Common sense. That's all it takes. But they don't want guys like me. They want bureaucrat and diversity hires. My mother nodded along. Gavin knows so much about how things work, she said to Aunt Barb. He should run for council. I put down my fork. Under the table, my phone buzzed. Not my personal phone. My work phone buzzed. The one the hospital issued me, linked directly to the trauma and emergency neurosurgery network across Ontario. The phone that only rings when someone is dying and I am the last option. I glanced at the screen under the table. It was a text from Dr. Amara Chen, my senior fellow. You're urgent. 4-year-old female. Ruptured cerebral aneurysm, medevac inbound from Mosoni, estimated arrival, sick kids 90 min, no one else certified for this repair. Need you on OR standby now. Please confirm my blood went cold. A ruptured aneurysm in a 4-year-old. The child was bleeding into her brain. Without surgery, she would be dead before midnight. And there were exactly 3 surgeons in Canada certified to perform a pediatric cerebral bypass on a patient that small. One was on sabbatical in Geneva, one had retired in August. The third was me, sitting at a table in Timmins, being told she didn't know what an ER does. I started typing under the table. Confirming. I'm in Timmins. Can be airborne in linear. Gavin's voice was sharp. What are you doing under the table? Are you texting at Thanksgiving dinner? It's work, I said, not looking up. I need to step outside for a minute. Work? Gavin laughed. He looked around at the table. What, did someone double book a dentist appointment? Does the receptionist have a filing emergency? My aunt chuckled nervously. My mother stared at her plate. It's urgent, I said, standing up. Sit down, Gavin ordered. His voice had shifted from mocking to menacing. The switch was instant, the way a furnace kicks on. I've got a rule in this house. No phones at dinner. Period. Everyone puts their phone in the basket. He pointed to a wicker basket on the counter, the same one he used every holiday, his little power ritual. Gavin, I can't explain, but this is genuinely an emergency. I have to make a call. An emergency. He stood up. He was 6'2", 240 pounds. He walked toward me, blocking the path to the kitchen door. You book appointments, Linnea. You don't have emergencies. Dentists have emergencies. You have post-it notes. The phone buzzed again in my hand. Amara, patient deteriorating. GCS dropping. ETA now 75 min. Am I in ANA? Please respond. A child was dying. Her Glasgow coma score was dropping, which meant her brain was swelling, which meant I had minutes, not hours, to coordinate. I needed to call the hospital. I needed to arrange a surgical team. I needed to get to an airport. Gavin, move, I said. My voice changed. It dropped into the register I use when I'm calling out commands in the operating room, when someone's skull is open and I need absolute obedience from every person in that room. This is not a discussion. He blinked. Something flickered in his eyes. Confusion, maybe. He had never heard that voice from me. Then his pride rebuilt the wall. Oh, what? You'll file a complaint with HR? He stepped closer. Give me the phone, Linnea. No. Give me the damn phone. He reached for it. I pulled back, tucking the phone against my chest. Do not touch me. It's my house. It's my rules. He lunged. I sidestepped. Years of standing for 12-hour surgeries had given me balance and spatial awareness that a man running on most and an ego could never match. He stumbled past me and grabbed the edge of the counter for balance. But then my mother's voice came from behind me and it cut deeper than any scalpel I've ever held. Linnea, just give him the phone. Please, don't ruin another Thanksgiving. Just apologize and sit down. I turned. She was standing by her chair, twisting the dish towel in her hands, her face a mask of practiced helplessness. She wasn't scared of Gavin. She was scared of conflict. She was scared of a world where she had to choose, because choosing me meant admitting she had been wrong for 20 years. A child is dying, Mom, I said. Don't be dramatic, she sighed. You're a receptionist, Linnea. What are you going to do? Answer the phone faster. That sentence. That exact sentence. I will hear it on my deathbed. My own mother looked me in the eye and told me that my life's work, every sleepless night, every hand I had steadied inside a child's skull, every parent I had told, your baby is going to be okay, was nothing more than answering the phone faster. If you are rooting for Linnea to finally show them exactly who she is, hit that like button right now. And if you've ever had someone in your family reduce everything you've built to nothing, type I see you in the comments below. In the half second I spent absorbing my mother's words, Gavin recovered. He came at me from the side, grabbed the phone with both hands, and ripped it from my grip. He was stronger. He was drunk. And I was paralyzed by the sound of my mother choosing him again. Got it, Gavin panted, holding the phone above his head like a trophy. Now let's see what's so goddamn important. He looked at the screen. His eyes moved across the text messages. I watched his face cycle through confusion, irritation, and a brief flash of something that might have been fear before he shoved it down. Dr. Carruthers? He read aloud, squinting. Who's Dr. Carruthers? He looked at me. Are you pretending to be a doctor now? Jesus, Linnea. This is a new low, even for you. The phone rang. Not a text. A call. The screen showed the sick kid's emergency line. The direct number that only connects to the on-call chief. Gavin looked at it. Sick kids hospital, he read. He snorted. Probably a robocall. Or maybe they need someone to book an appointment, eh? He looked at the table for laughs. He answered it. He put it on speaker. Because he wanted an audience for my humiliation. The voice that filled the kitchen was Dr. Amara Chen's, and she was not calm. She was the steadiest surgeon I had ever trained, and she was breaking. Dr. Carruthers, thank God. We have a 4-year-old with a ruptured basilar tip aneurysm. The medevac from Musoni is 40 minutes out. We need you in the OR. I have the team assembling, but no one else can lead this. Are you there, Linnea? Are you there? The kitchen went silent. The hockey pre-game murmured from the other room. The turkey steamed on its platter, and Gavin stood there holding the phone, his mouth open, his face going through the same color change I've seen in patients losing oxygen. Electrolyte in under 3 seconds. Who is this? Gavin stammered. This is Dr. Amara Chen, neurosurgery fellow at the Hospital for Sick Children, Toronto. I am trying to reach Dr. Linnea Carruthers, chief of pediatric neurosurgery. We have a child who will die without her. Who am I speaking with? Chief of pediatric neurosurgery. Each word landed on the table like a brick. My mother's hands flew to her mouth. Aunt Barb set down her wineglass with a sharp click. Even the electric knife still plugged in on the counter seemed to stop buzzing. I'm her stepfather, Gavin said. His voice was barely a whisper, Sir, I need you to hand the phone to Dr. Carruthers immediately. A child's life depends on it. Do you understand? A child is going to die. Gavin looked at me, really looked at me. And for the first time in 20 years, he didn't see the girl he could mock, the dropout he invented, the receptionist he needed me to be so he could feel big. He saw a woman that the most important children's hospital in the country was begging for. He saw his own irrelevance reflected back at him like a mirror he couldn't smash. His hand shook. The phone trembled. He held it out to me without a word. I took it. I didn't thank him. I turned away and walked straight to the kitchen, already switching into command mode. Amara, I'm here. What's her DCS? 7 and falling. CT shows a 6 centimeter bleed. We're prepping all 4. Get an STR on standby. I want Dr. Kowalski scrubbed in, nobody else. Cross and type 4 units of packed red cells. Prep the macrosurgical tray and get the intraoperative angiography suite warmed up. I would be there. How? You're in Timmins. That's 8 hours by car. I'll get a flight. Give me 20 minutes. I hung up and immediately dialed the Timmins Victor M Power Airport. I identified myself. I requested emergency air transport, citing a medical emergency and my credentials with the Ontario Air Ambulance Service, which gave me priority clearance. A charter could be ready in 45 minutes. Then I called the hospital CEO directly. I need the ore held for me. Estimated arrival 3.5 hours. Keep her alive until I get there. We'll keep her alive, he said. Just get here, Linnea. I walked back into the dining room. Everyone was frozen exactly where I had left them. Gavin had sat down. He was staring at the mashed potatoes as if they held the answer to what had just happened. My mother was crying silently, mascara running down her cheeks. I picked up my jacket from the back of my chair. I took my car keys from the counter. I didn't sit down. You're a doctor? My mother whispered. This whole time? I'm a surgeon, Mum. I've been a surgeon for 8 years. I'm the head of my department. I separate children's brains from the tumors that are killing them. I have operated on Premier's grandchildren, and I've operated on kids from reserves up north who had no one else. That's what I do while Gavin tells everyone I'm a receptionist. The silence that followed was heavier than any I've experienced in an operating room, and I have stood in silences where the next sound is either a heartbeat or a flatline. Why didn't you tell us? My mother asked, her voice breaking. I did. I tried. When I got into U of T, you told me not to get my hopes up. When I got into residency, Gavin called me an unpaid intern. When I was appointed chief, I called you, and you told me that Gavin was stressed about work and could I send more money for the mortgage. I paused. The mortgage that I have been paying for 2 years, by the way. 3,000 a month from the paycheck of a receptionist. Gavin's head snapped up. What? Your house, Gavin? The roof over your head. You didn't restructure the loan? I paid it every month from my surgeon salary, the one you said I'd never earn. The color drained from his face completely. He looked at my mother. She looked away. And one more thing, I said, pulling on my jacket. When you told the table that if you ran the health system, you'd fix it in a month, I want you to know something. Last year, the Ontario Health Minister personally asked me to sit on the advisory panel for Northern Healthcare restructuring. The 3 emergency rooms you were complaining about losing, I saved 2 of them. Me, the receptionist. I turned to leave. Then I stopped. Because the one person in this house who had never lied to me, who had never needed me to be small so he could feel big, was sitting at the end of the table with tears rolling silently down his face. I walked to Harvey's wheelchair. I knelt down. He was shaking, not from Parkinson's, but from something else. Pride. Joy. The relief of a man who had carried a secret alone for too long and finally saw it come into the light. You go save that little girl, Doc, he said, his voice thick. I'll be back for you, Grandpa, I whispered. I'm going to move you to Toronto. Sunnybrook has the best veterans program in the country. You'll have your own room. You'll have a view of the ravine. You'll never eat another cold meal in the back bedroom of this house. He lifted his hand and cupped my cheek. His fingers trembled against my skin. You were always the fire, he said quietly. You just let them think you were the smoke. I kissed his forehead. Then I stood up, walked past my mother, walked past Gavin, and walked out the front door. The October air hit me like cold water. Clean, sharp. The birch trees along the street were blazing orange against a grey sky. My car was right where I left it. I got in, turned the key, and drove toward the airport without looking back. The surgery took 11 hours. The little girl's name was Makayla. She was Cree, from a community near Musoni, and she had been airlifted with her grandmother holding her hand the entire way. The aneurysm had ruptured in the worst possible location, the basilar tip, where the brain's main arteries converge like rivers meeting at a delta. One wrong movement with the micro scissors and she would never wake up. She woke up 3 days later. Makila opened her eyes and asked her grandmother for bannock. I was standing at the foot of her bed when it happened, still in my scrubs, and I cried. Not the controlled two-tear cry I allowed myself at my grandfather's bedside. I mean, I sobbed. The nurses pretended not to notice. The resident on call handed me a box of tissues without a word. In the hallway, Amara put her arm around me and said, "You made it." She made it. Breathe. I breathed. A week later, I moved Harvey to Sunnybrook. He has a room on the 7th floor with a window that looks out over the ravine. In the mornings, the physiotherapy team helps him with his exercises. In the afternoons, he sits by the window and watches the Canada geese fly south. He calls me every Sunday. He never mentions my mother. Neither do I. My mother called once. I let it go to voicemail. Linnea, it's Mum. Gavin he's not doing well. He hasn't been able to find work since you stopped the payments. The bank sent a letter. We have 60 days. Please call me back. We're family. You owe us that much. I played the voicemail once, then I deleted it. I don't owe them my life. I spent 20 years paying a debt I never incurred, buying approval from people who were never going to give it. I dimmed my own light so a man who peeked at a mine cafeteria could feel like the sun. Not anymore. Last month, the Canadian Medical Association invited me to give the keynote address at their annual conference in Vancouver. 3,000 doctors in the audience. The health minister introduced me. When I walked to the podium, the room stood. A standing ovation before I even opened my mouth. I looked out at the crowd. I thought about the kitchen in Timmins. I thought about Gavin's electric knife and his cheap beer and his voice telling me that girls from Timmins don't become doctors. I leaned into the microphone and said, "I'm from Timmins, Ontario, and I'm the chief of pediatric neurosurgery at Sick Kids Hospital. If anyone ever tells you that where you come from determines where you end up, I want you to know that they are wrong. And I want you to know that sometimes the people who tell you that are the people sitting at your own dinner table." The room didn't just clap, it roared. My war is done. But I know some of you are still sitting at that table, still swallowing insults with your turkey, still hiding who you are to keep someone else comfortable. If you've ever had to walk away from a family that couldn't see you to save yourself, I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments. You are not alone. If Linnea's story gave you even a spark of courage tonight, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Let's build something together. A place where silence isn't surrender. It's just the calm before you rise. Until next time,